This man literally made me cry today. I don't even know the last time a man made me cry, but I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Let me tell you what happened. So, me and my kiddo had just pulled up in my papa's yard. We were gonna go in, spend some time with him, the wife, and the grands, and then get back downtown because I wanted to go to Jazz in the Park. Dion Blue and the little band was gonna be out there, and I didn't want to miss it. Well, I'm waiting for my papa to get back with the grands, and we're sitting in his driveway when I get a call. It says no, no caller ID, debate. I decide to answer it, and on the other end of the phone was an officer. He proceeds to let me know that I was supposed to be in court this morning at 8:30, and now I'm in contempt of court because I didn't show up. Apparently, I had signed some certification letter that had been sent to my home that I was going to be there. And so now I had two choices. I could either turn myself in because now there was a warrant for my arrest and spend 72 hours in jail, or I could pay some insurmountable fee to do some kind of writing examination to determine it wasn't my signature. So I'm hearing all this, getting all this information, and trying to process all this man is saying. He sounds like an officer. He's using all of this legal terminology. He is saying much, and my mind is trying to catch up with what he's saying, trying to process these different steps and processes and what I should do, while also back in my mind thinking like, yeah, I don't know if this makes sense. I don't know if this is real. At the same time, I don't know if it's not real. And so I'm trying to remain respectful to the officer while acknowledging what he's saying, responding, while in the back of my mind trying to do some gymnastics of how can I fact check this in this moment right now. And I spent about a good over 30 minutes on the phone with the first officer, who he was a bit more rude. Called my kid a rugrat. We were about to have a whole problem. I had to calm, slow him down real quick. The second one was a little bit calmer, nicer, or whatever. But again, I'm just caught off guard by all of this. Caught off guard with my plans for the rest of the day. And it was like, wait, what? Like, you're going to send me, a single mom, with a 7-year-old in the back to jail? Now, granted, I could have dropped him off at his daddy's house, but that's besides the point. They ain't know nothing about his daddy. So I'm a single mom with a 7-year-old in the back. You're going to take me in. Needless to say, I'm like, yo, who can I reach out to? My officer friends and my officer wife ain't answering. Vonda Helens, where were you? Where were you when I needed you? Heather Rain picked up on the first line. She on the phone. She gonna call me back, and I'm like, I just need somebody who got a little bit more know-how to let me know that I'm not tripping. And eventually it came to me. I was like, well, hold on. I was like, you know what? Let me just reach out to the number that I do know is actually law enforcement. And we can fact check this right now. And so he was like, oh no, ma'am, I can, I can have like an official number that you would recognize, call you. I'm like, yeah. I was like, but understand, thank goodness for Eric, who has trained us in scamming. Okay. And so I was like, yeah, no. I said, there's technology nowadays where you can have a number show up on the caller ID that actually doesn't match the real number that you're calling from. I was like, so let me just go ahead and call the number that I know. You can stay on the line and we can, make sure we introduce one another, right? And so I literally called Richland County up, and after I get them on the phone, I begin to share the information, right, that's been given to me. And I'm like, yeah, the officer's on the phone right now. When I said that, the scammer hung up. He hung up, but I needed to follow all the way through to make sure that Josh's mama was not at risk of going to jail this weekend. But it upset me so much, so even though in my mind I'm thinking like, man, this doesn't seem like the protocol or how things would be done, At the same time, I wanted to remain respectful and calm and slow as I figured out, is this real or not? And it made me cry. Made me cry. Thank goodness my papa was there. He hugged me, patted me on the head and the back. But I was upset for a whole moment about this thing. Had me, like, I wasted 30 minutes of my life that I could have been hanging out with my papa. It delayed me getting downtown to enjoy my jazz in the park. All these things. All of these things. But I truly believe that there's another message here. So, like, leaving my papa's house, I'm driving back home to get changed up because I had been out in these streets all day, working, walking, all the things. And I was like, I need to just freshen up, change. We can go downtown and be cute and stuff. My husband might be outside. He might be out there. Anyways, as I'm driving, I see this license plate, and on the back of it, it literally has the word Y and 459, and it just stuck out to me. It was like the why I had been asking about, why this call. And not only that, like, why this week, Lord? Why this week? I felt like I have made a decision on certain things. Like, Lord, I'm going to show up. I'm going to be faithful. I want to honor you in this way. I want to spend time in your presence. And I feel like the enemy has just been against me. His hand has been raised against me. My sleep, has been stolen from the enemy so much this past week. And then not only that, my son has, had some terrors. I have had these dreams. One of them, y'all, this dark-skinned man was kissing on me and talking about he coming back. No, you can't come back. It's over. It's over. You cannot come back. And so much has been going on. I've been sleep deprived. And, like, one of the things me and my sister said we would do is, like, if the Lord, for some reason, allows us to be awoken or to refrain from sleeping, we're going to pray. But I was so exhausted. I gave it a 5-second prayer. I didn't have much last night. And so to walk through all of that, to not get any more good sleep, and then to come into this man threatening to take me to jail, it was a lot. It was a lot. But going back to this license plate, I see the word Y459. I was like, it just sounds like a Y of, like, why this, Lord? Like, why this scenario? And so I decided to look up 459 in the Strong's Concordance just to see what was there, to see if there was something the Lord was trying to have me to discern. And y'all, I want to just read to you the Greek and the Hebrew words that correspond to 459 in the Concordance. And so in the Greek, it means lawless, without law, and wicked. And at first, for a moment, I'm like, Lord, you saying that I'm lawless? Am I wicked? But then I had to keep reading. And so the second word that 459 in the Concordance is ascribed to means these are those. And I'm like, these are those. Okay, lawless, these are those. But then I just kept reading, right? And it was like, they give you kind of like a little snippet and, of like a little bit of like what that word means, or like what's in the actual link when you click on it to give you more details. And so this was at just the snippet of these and those. It says this. It says, God names and knows every power that threatens his people. It goes on to say, none escape his decree. The word draws a line between what is temporary, these, and what is, I think it goes on to say, like, eternal, like, so God's kingdom. And that just stuck out to me because it was immediately like the why behind all this is because just men are lawless. Men are wicked. Men's hearts are drawn to do evil. And sometimes that isn't reason enough to, like, give us calm or peace about some of the horrific things that happen, but it is a reality. We live in the world that is fallen, where man's heart is sinful, unrepentant, and unsubmitted to the Lord. Lawlessness abounds. But the good news for the believer and those who come into the family, again, come on in when you still got time, is that the Lord names. He said he names and he knows every power, right, that threatens his people. And that's just such a comfort to me, because it's like the Lord knows. The Lord knew those men were going to call me. He knew they were going to rattle me. He knew they were threatening, right? My sense of well-being, the sense of well-being for my son, and his safety, and just all the things, right? That that I feel like the Lord be calling me to do this weekend. They had nothing to do with a jail cell, not one thing. And so it was just affirming to me that, like, it was like, yeah, I know them. I know they did that, and I take issue with them because they have taken issue with my child. They have put their hand, their name, their mouth to threaten you and to make you feel some type of way. And the Lord's like, I feel some type of way about that. And it's interesting because I was like, Lord, I feel like there's something deeper here, right? And so a couple different things. We just actually wrapped up the book of Esther for our staff devotions with my co-laborers in this fight against trafficking. So we've been going through Esther every morning a chapter. We finished up chapter 9 and 10 this morning. And it's just interesting, we were actually talking about power. And I mentioned to them, because let me tell you, so in the last part of it, right, it was like, if you know this book of the Bible, it's like the Jews' lives are threatened. They are threatened by someone who has power. And at the end of it all, the king overturns the power of the second command, and he gives it to the man who's been faithful before him. And he rises to second in command out of just the Lord's sovereignty and goodness, right? To turn upside down man's intention, the Satan's intention for our lives, Lord, and to set faithful men in places, right, to be deliverers, to be people who to make new decrees. And so this all kind of coming together for me. I'm like, okay, yeah, like we saw that so much throughout this book, right? There was this power that threatened the people, and the rest of the people, right, were like literally like puppets. They were like, whatever that king says that we fear, who has power, we're going to do whatever he says. And so when his word changed, when the decree changed, the people's heart changed towards the Jews. Then they were for them. Then they wanted to be a part of them, right, because they saw they were a people who were protected. And I was telling, my coworkers that on our way, we need to drop Josh off this morning to his camp. He was like, Mommy, why are all these, power lines? Like, what are all these lines doing out here? Actually, didn't call power. He's like, why are these lines out here, whatever? And I knew he was talking about the power lines, He's like, why are all these poles? And I was like, well, son, I said, do you see all of these buildings? All these restaurants, all these stores? I said, everybody wants power. And I said, they can't get it without being connected to the power source, right? Which is what these lines are carrying to them. And it just, again, was like another message to me. It's like, in the same way, like, despite any worldly power, like, we as believers have access to the greatest power in the world. And if we are not connected to him, then we have no access to this power, right? No access to subdue and to cease the threat, right? With peace that the Lord provides, if we don't have his power. And so as I'm just thinking about this, I'm like, yeah, this feels personal. It feels personal, but it also feels like a message for the body. Like, okay, the Lord allowed this to happen, allowed these little pieces to come together to remind the body that there will be world powers that will rise, and they will threaten you. And they will also seem real. They will also seem like what they are saying and what they are decreeing and what they are asking of you is mandatory, is necessary. And this reminds me of end times, right? But we are to resist anything that causes us to forfeit our faithfulness to the Lord. We resist that. And we remain in a state of peace. We remain in a state of calm because we know what our Lord has said, which, as I kind of like was detailing in on what that second these and those words said, it really made sense to me. It talked about like these theological themes of that word. And so a couple of different things I kind of just want to highlight to you. One of them, and they talk a good bit about Daniel here, and that same message of who's in power, right? Who's threatening power, and then what should you do when there's a power threatening you, when there's a power beseeching you to go against what the Lord has asked of you. You obey him. You obey the Lord. You don't obey that law. Okay. And so this is what it says from Daniel 2:44. It gives us this reference. It says, "It will shatter and consume all these kingdoms." That's the these and those that word was talking about, but will in itself endure forever. So it says the demonstrative underscores that God's coming kingdom does not overthrow an abstract evil, but particular named regimens. And so, yeah, so although we do have spiritual warfare, powers, rulers, authorities, right, kingdoms that we cannot see, there are actually real ones. They're going to be real people. There's going to be real kingdoms. There's going to be real earthly powers, right? But the Lord's power is still great enough to overthrow the ones we can see too. And it talked about this other reference. It says, Daniel 2:40 refers to iron that will crush and break all these, reminding readers that even the most formidable in power belongs to the catalog of these, a discrete, time-bound entity destined to fall. It says that that these satraps and these administrators under the scrutiny of an earthly monarch, yet the broader narrative shows that ultimately they're subject to God's greater court. God's greater court. They wanted to drag me into court, but there's a greater court that's going to drag them into answering for what they've done, answering for what they do. And I think it's important for us to remember that as well, that we don't know what, we have a sense, right? Because the Lord gives us his word. He gives us so much in scripture, particularly Revelation, where he does foretell, hey, these things are going to happen. And there's so much imagery, and it can be overwhelming and scary. But we have an understanding of what this war will look like, what this fight will look like, what this threat will look like. We can identify it when we see it. We can identify it when we hear it. And so let's remember, let's seek, let's read, let's ask the Lord while we may understand before it shows up and catches us off guard, like it did me today. Because when I called Richland County, I talked to one of the officers. He was like, yes, ma'am. He's like, I get about 10 to 15 of these calls today. He said, in fact, because I was like, you need to put a PSA out. And he was like, we have. He was like, on our website. Now, granted, a lot of us ain't checking, Richland County website unless, we got some business to attend to. Most of us ain't over there. So I ain't know nothing about these PSAs, but the information was there, right? And so what PSA has the Lord given us? It's his word. It's his word. It's our PSA. Understand these things. Understand that these threats, these powers, these difficulties, these challenges are going to come. And what are you going to do with that? Be faithful. What are you going to do with that? Look to me. What are you going to do with that? Choose to remain in my peace, in my covering, even if they threaten to remove it all from you. Because even if our lives are taken, are threatened, like, we know the ending. And it's with him. And it's good. And so remembering that these things, whether they're spiritual, whether they're physical, whether they're an earthly power, these things are time bound. These things do have an ending, and these things will answer to a greater court. I think the last thing I really wanted to highlight was that it says, like Daniel, believers navigate real structures, jobs, governments, cultures, yet remain citizens of a higher realm that will outlast these worldly systems. And so I think that is the word of the Lord today for his people. Threats will come. We might be caught off guard, but if we have enough knowledge, right? I've been doing all them trainings that our IT administrator had been sending me. I had been studying up, reading up. I had been listening and involved in these staff conversations about how our enemy will come and seek to move us with fear. And yet I was able to hold on, delay for a whole 30 plus minutes, right? Until I could think about, okay, how can I verify this information to shut the mouth of this threat? And the Lord gave it to me. And I believe he's going to do the same thing for us. And I think the PSA is to get in his presence and to get in his word. All right, love you guys. That's it. Stay vigilant. Stay prayerful. I love you.